Sagittarius, and welcome to your Geoscope for the lunar eclipse in Sagittarius. So this Geoscope is designed to be a forecast for the 2 weeks that follow the full moon lunar eclipse in Sagittarius and take us up to the solar eclipse that happens at the new moon later in June. So if you are a member of my website, a subscriber, thanks for joining us, and if you're a YouTuber, then welcome to this reading for Sagittarius. So let's get into your reading. So just to say that I will be doing more in-depth overall forecast for the 2 eclipses which follow this one and make up part of the June eclipse season, but they are in a different sign, so I have chosen to separate out this particular lunar eclipse from the 2 which follow, because they're almost kind of, well, they're different animals really, and they have different purposes. So this one is really about sort of closing out or integrating new information which is coming in, but which may it may take some time, 2.5 to 3 years for whatever comes in now to kind of either manifest in your life or to become clear. I think a lot of people are having some downloads, what they call downloads at the moment. They're having sort of intuitive hits and aha moments, and they feel that they're learning a lot. And I think that the key now is simply to take in and not feel in a rush to necessarily sort of draw conclusions or feel that they have to act on the information straight away. It may take some time to settle and to be sorted and that kind of thing. And then on a more mundane level, this is about sometimes release. Often lunar eclipses are about release, as well as integration of the last, stuff that's happened from the last 6 months. And the reason that I say that is because this eclipse is touched by Venus, which will be retrograde and will be sort of moving with the sun at the time. So I do feel as though this is kind of illumination or clarity about things that have happened over the last 6 months or so, that you're kind of getting clear about it. It's likely to be about romantic relationships, values, self-worth, as well as money and creativity. But anyway, let's see what comes out in your reading. So the first card out, interestingly, is Mercury in Gemini, and it's interesting because this is a reading for Sagittarius, and Gemini would actually be in your 7th house. That's where the moon would be, if you had Sagittarius rising. But nonetheless, I think what it's saying is that at this particular full moon, you can expect messages to come in. This is a time when you may also be making decisions. Gemini is a dual sign, so it could be a fork in the road that's coming up. It could be some kind of yes or no answer that you have to give somebody, maybe to do with a contract. Or you could simply be getting messages from people that bring clarity about past situations. Then next out we have Rubeus. Now Rubeus is Mars in its nighttime sign of Scorpio. So Rubeus is really about passion, and it's interesting that it falls in your 4th house, which is essentially where if you listen to my astrological forecast, I said that Mars was going to be in your 4th house during this particular solar lunar event, and that it could sort of arouse passions, and these could be negative or positive. So it could be anger, it could be jealousy, it could be resentment. But I think what it's doing is it's stirring up stuff that maybe was below the surface of your awareness up until now. Dynamics also within the family, because this is 4th house, or making you aware of sort of ancestral line curses, or just karma that may need to sort of be cleared around about this time. Then we have Fortuna Minor. Now, Fortuna Minor is considered to be a really auspicious quadrogram. So Fortuna Minor is the Sun in Leo. So this is fire energy. Here we've got water energy, and then this is air. So air, water, fire. So Fortuna Minor is about gain. But it's usually in the form of assistance from others. So it's interesting that we've got it in the 7th house of significant partnerships, which is where we will find the Sun and Venus at the time of this particular lunar eclipse. So I think what it's saying is that you can expect support or positive messages or sort of confirmations happening when it comes to close relationships. So this is significant others. We're talking about either business partners, marriage partners, people that we've been in long-term relationships with. It could be a manager, like a business manager. It could be an agent, someone that you've had a long-term relationship with. But this indicates gain in that area. So even if it's just clarity about a past situation, because Venus is retrograde after all, certainly I do feel as though you will feel fortunate on some level when it comes to your relationships. And then the final quadrogram that comes out is Jupiter in Sagittarius. So this is your sign and your planet. And here we've got it in the quadrogram is Acquisitio, which is again another really positive quadrogram. So this is about acquisition. It's about gain. And this could be financial gain, more than likely it is, or it could be sort of an enhanced reputational profile, because we are talking about the 10th house here, which is about sort of career, fame, honors, public office, you know, your kind of your public persona, your reputation in the sort of public domain, all these good things. So it looks as if your star is on the rise, Sagittarius. But what I'm going to do now is quickly pause the video while I go and calculate the rest of the quadrograms so that we can populate the rest of the chart. So back shortly. Hi Sag, welcome back to your reading. So here's your completed conversion table. If you're interested, you can download a copy of this from my website. Just go to astrologysphere.com and you'll see the page that is to do with geomancy. The download will be on there. It does have step-by-step instructions. I'm not using this system strictly. I am using the Golden Dawn system. So I'm using the 4 mothers for the cardinal houses, the daughters for the succedent, and then the nieces for the cadent houses. But you know, you work out which is easier for you. I've just used this kind of simple, straightforward way of house allocation in that conversion sheet. Okay, so let's get into your reading in more detail. So as you can see, I have popped the cards into their correct places on the casting cloth, and so let's get into your reading a little bit further. Now, the first thing I want to say is that if we consider that Albus is Mercury in Gemini, it's quite interesting that we've got a lot of pairs, you know, twins in this particular reading. So if you notice, the first and the second houses have turned out to be in the same sign. The same thing is happening here in the 10th and the 9th house. So I find that quite interesting. We've got kind of a mirroring going on here, and I think those are the main ones. But it's just very interesting. I think what it's saying is take notice of things that happen in pairs or in twos over the next couple of weeks, because you know both Gemini and Sagittarius are both bicorporeal signs, which means that they are considered to be dual in nature. So this is what makes them mutable. They can transform from one thing into another. So I think that is also saying we remain sort of fluid and adaptable, and see this as an opportunity to alchemize, so to transform one thing into something else. So if we consider the positions of the Sun and Moon in relation to your kind of your ideal chart, Sag, then we've got the Moon here in Sagittarius, and we've got the Sun in the 7th house. And As I said, Mars will be in your 4th house. So we've kind of covered that, but I'm going to sort of just go over it a little bit more, because this is going to be quite an important T-square astrologically, you know, when it comes to this particular full moon eclipse. So this is really going to be the sort of seat of the nub of where energy is going to be focused, is on Mars, and then a kind of, you know, again, an interesting forking out to the Sun and the Moon, which will be on opposite sides of the horizon. So it's emphasizing this idea of a fork in the road, of choices, you know, going one way or going the other, going back to the past, going forward to the future. What do you pick, either or? But Mars, in a way, is, even though it's challenging, maybe asking you to try and find the balance, the compromise, the middle way, because it is literally in between. You know, if you think of this as a straight line between the Sun and the Moon, then this is essentially halfway through. So that's quite interesting. But the other thing I want to say about this particular reading is that the outcome is really positive. I mean, we will get into this in more detail, but a lot of the quadrograms that have come out for you are very positive. So what I would say is that if things don't necessarily go to plan, or there may be some sort of temporary upset, don't be overly concerned, because I think from negative will come positive. And it's also, if you have that kind of frame of mind where you are going to turn negatives into positives, then I think you can sort of alchemize quite well. You can kind of create magic here. So that's something else to say. So if we look at a little bit further at you know, some of the areas where we see mirroring happening, it's interesting again, the symmetry in the actual house system. So we've got mirroring here in the 1st and the 2nd houses, and we've got mirroring happening kind of here in the 9th and the 10th houses. So these are both these are kind of cardinal placements, and then you've got on either side of that kind of cardinal pivot, you've got sort of mirroring going on. So if we consider Albus here, it seems to be saying that your choice, or the thing that you need to be working on at this particular full moon is a blank slate, kind of a fresh start, kind of getting back, almost like a reset. You know, if you think about Albus, Albus is the Latin word for white, and so very often this is seen as, you know, a blank sheet of paper, starting fresh. So I think what you need to see the next 2 weeks being about is almost clearing the decks, so that you start with a clean slate at the new 6-month cycle that begins at the Cancer solar eclipse, you know, later in June. But I'm going to read you the keywords for Albus, so that it can kind of jog your memory, or perhaps get your intuition going. So Albus is associated with whiteness, blank paper, paleness or fair skin, intellectual pursuits, wisdom, mental clarity, peace, a bright shining light, like a star, for example, the calm of death, coldness and detachment. So interesting that we're getting this theme of detachment coming up again, which I talked about in the astrological forecast for Sagittarius. So I do really feel that emotional detachment is important, because emotions are going to be running very high, particularly, as I said, when it comes to your connections to family, or to a home or property, or something to do with ancestral lineage. Could be also DNA, you know, inherited diseases, that type of thing. But you know, this is a kind of a fork in the road where you're being given the opportunity for a fresh start, and it may have something to do with property or possessions. So that's why I said it's interesting here that we've got 4th, which can be home, or your main property where you live, or a family home, you know, that's passed on via inheritance. And then we've got the 2nd house being emphasized here, which is about self-worth, about value, about skills, as well as physical possessions. So this could be property, or it could be money from the sale of a property, or it could be earned income through work. So that's something to consider. Then with the second set of mirroring that happens here, which interestingly is in the signs of Sagittarius. So we've actually got the luminary kind of polar opposition being echoed in the cards, because this is Gemini and this is Sagittarius. This is Mercury, ruler of Gemini. This is Jupiter, ruler of Sagittarius. So really, really interesting. So this mirroring here in the 9th and the 10th house is kind of, as I said, this is about career, about soul purpose, about your direction in life, where you want to be heading, basically, the future. And then we've got the 9th house being emphasized, or, mirroring happening in the 9th house. And the 9th house is really about beliefs, it's about dreams, it's about messages from the divine. So it is your connection to your higher self, to spirit, to intuition, to higher realms of knowledge. It can also be higher education. So this is the judgment end of the discernment end, kind of wisdom acquired through experience. So taking knowledge and applying it, basically. Whereas this is, knowledge coming in, information coming in, that is about making choices on a sort of a bit more of a superficial level, a kind of everyday life level, as opposed to the sort of meaning of life kind of going on here. And I think what it's saying is that there is tremendous gain to be had from seeing the deeper meaning or significance in whatever events transpire around this time. So I'm just going to read to you from again the keywords in case they jolt your memory. So acquisitio is about material success, profit, riches, gain, attainable goals, expansion and absorption. So the quadrigram is of a mouth or a pouch held open, ready to receive, to take something in. And it happens to be sort of exalted in the 10th house. So that's really interesting. So, as I say, profits and riches. So I really feel as though there are some gems, some pearls of wisdom to be gained from whatever happens at this particular full moon eclipse and the 2 weeks that follow. But I also feel as though these are going to be valuable insights that are gained from taking information and seeing the sort of bigger picture, putting it into the context of the bigger picture, realizing how it feeds and kind of supports your soul purpose, which may be learning lessons, and keeping your focus, keeping your eye on the prize. So keeping your focus on the future, on where you want to be headed, on what you feel your mission is in this particular lifetime, and taking also using your intuition and your connection to spirit to guide you through, whatever kind of niggles come up, over the course of the next 2 weeks. So the other set of mirroring that is happening here is to be found in the 12th and 6th houses. So I'm just going to mention that briefly. Here we've got Castor. This is Saturn in Capricorn in your 6th and 12th house. So this is emphasizing the axis between kind of mind and body. This is about everyday life, kind of, our schedules, our rituals, as well as health and work colleagues. So in other words, your everyday work environment, the people you work with. And then this is the more kind of collective energy of the private domain. So this is the subconscious, it's dreams, it's what is hidden or out of sight. It's also institutions like libraries, museums, and mental asylums, hospitals, as well as death, because this is of course identity. So this is birth, this is sort of death in the sense of being part of a bigger, if we're the drop, this is the ocean kind of story. So it's interesting that Saturn is also retrograde at the moment, and will be returning to the sign of Capricorn briefly before it goes forward. So the timing may be important there when it comes to things that transpire now. There may be a need to let go of something or overcome certain limitations that may be linked to the 2 to 2.5 year cycle that happened when Saturn was in Capricorn, or maybe highlighted again when Saturn returns briefly to Capricorn later on in the summer. So that's something just to kind of bear in mind. But if we consider that that relationships are being emphasized, and support from relationships, because here we have our this is almost your kind of final outcome, if you like. So we've got the left witness, the right witness, and we've got the judge. So this is interesting, echoing this idea of Jupiter and Sagittarius as the judge. So the outcome of your reading is extremely positive. It's Fortuna Major. So this is really positive gain, and usually it's gain on a sort of like a spiritual level. So I'm just quickly going to read you the keywords for that. So that is great fortune, good luck, chance or serendipity, power, effortless success, social mobility, a winning disposition, victory, inner strength, and natural charisma. So this is really, really positive fire energy. And so I think what it's kind of saying is that ultimately, you will end up feeling very pleased with where you find yourself at the end of this particular 2-week cycle, particularly if you listen to your intuition and you apply higher wisdom or knowledge that you've acquired over the course of your lifetime. Now the means to getting there seems to involve either a literal trip, a journey of some kind, or it could be an inner shift, or a kind of choosing a path. I think getting very clear, to me, what the message is getting very clear about where you're going. So this is 10th house, your future kind of direction of travel. So getting very clear about where you want to be heading, and therefore what is going to help you get there. So this will be also kind of knowledge and support from others, which is emphasized here by the right witness. So I think that the key thing here is setting your course of travel. So making a decision or a choice, being detached from sort of getting caught up in drama, particularly when it comes to family. So remaining detached, but not necessarily not, this is not necessarily not getting involved, it's just refusing to be sucked into the sort of dramatic or the emotional element of it, that aspect of it. And then I think once you get clear on your direction of travel, this will almost magnetically attract to you the support that you need from people, and that this will help to sort of propel you in the direction of great gain. So I think a really, really positive reading. In fact, it's probably, I think after Libra, it's been the most positive geoscope that I've done, of the signs so far. So really, really, I think, lots to look forward to. Don't be too sort of put off, as I say, by any spanners that kind of come up. Just see them as, challenges or obstacles that need to be overcome. Keep your eye on, keep in tune with your higher wisdom and your intuition and your connection to the higher realms, and be very clear about where you're heading. This will attract the support that you need from other people, key partners, and these aren't necessarily romantic. They could be, but it could also be a key business partner, and that this will lead you in the direction of serendipity. So I think this is really about kind of magnetic attraction, being very clear about where you're heading, setting out on that path, not deviating, because this is it. I don't know if you can see it, but the quadrigram is of a straight line, so it's literally not deviating from your path, and that in turn will concentrate the energy so that you only attract things which are going to aid you along that path. So I hope that's been helpful, Sagittarius. I'd love to hear your feedback. Do leave a comment in the box below if you enjoyed this and if you felt that it resonated. Also, if you'd like to see future geoscopes like this, because I'd like to make them a regular feature of my YouTube channel, then do hit the subscribe button or the like button, so that I know that this has been useful for you. And many new moon blessings, and I'll catch you again for the my next forecast, which will be for the new moon solar eclipse in Cancer.